Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Rival Banter, a Marvel Rivals podcast. I am one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me, as always, our esteemed Seth Martin, Bookish Pappy. Seth, how are you doing, my friend?
I am here. I'm ready to go.
Well, that's good to hear. I am recovering. I went to the dentist today for a routine checkup. It's the worst thing that can happen to an individual human being on the planet, and I'm sorry that it happened to me. I am victimized, and I'm a strong person, and I too will get through this. But any pity that can be thrown my way, I will gladly accept. So, thank you all for your thoughts and prayers, and we will try to proceed with this show as normal. And as awkward as a transition as this is, we're here to talk about rivals and not my downfall as a human being today.
Mm, mm, mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, for
Oh
the
no.
for the uninitiated, this is Rival Banter, a weekly podcast all about Marvel Rivals. We talk about all things competitive, all things esports, all things in-game, all things Marvel Rivals news, and we've got you covered this week as well with stuff for the upcoming update, our reactions to the NA tournament that happened over this weekend, and we're going to be looking at a very popular thread that happened over the week over on Reddit, talking about what the main problem with Marvel Rivals is. But that's all going to be happening later in this episode. Before we jump into any of that, though, Seth, I'm going to start off how I start off every episode by asking, how was your week in Rivals?
Well, it was pretty uneventful. I keep setting these goals of trying to climb a little bit, and I'll climb, and then I'll slide right back down. And so I'm pretty much, I think, right where I left off last week. If I'm not mistaken, when we did the show last week, I was like mid Diamond 3. And I went back down to low plat 1, and now I'm right back up to mid diamond 3. And I really just haven't been playing as much. I've been Assassin's Creed Shadows came out this or last week, so I've been spending a little bit more time with that. And when you've got full-time jobs and babies and karate practices and stuff like that to take them to,
For
it's hard to
yourself,
get
right?
as much. Yeah, definitely, it could be cool. Hiya Kia. But hell yeah! But it's hard to balance that time out. So I've definitely had to step back from Rivals a little bit. I'm always like disheartened every time I go into esports practice at school. Like that's kind of been where I've been. Like I'm hogging the PlayStation. Children be step away, and we've got one PS5 there. I'm like, it's mine. I'm grinding. Why you guys away with you? And today I walked in and one of the kids had gotten it, and I was like, I can't kick this guy off of the PlayStation because technically they're the ones that should be using it and not me. So I'm gonna let it slide, and then eventually I managed to slip in. But here we are.
I mean, it's mighty big of you to think that way, but I'm also very disappointed in you at the same time.
Yeah, man.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Some of us have to be selfless by profession.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't know anything about that at this point. It's been like 10 years since I've been in ministry. So,
You're in business. You're in
yeah,
business
yeah. And
now.
I'm in business. It's all about selfishness and my numbers and stepping on other people to get to where I want to go. So, um,
Capitalism.
do you still feel the love, though, and the passion for the game? I mean, we're 6 episodes into the show. So,
I mean, it grows deeper every time. It really does, and I think it does help to step away a little bit here and there. And I've been coming back and playing different stuff. I've been playing a little bit more mag. I was just like, I've been waiting to maybe get the mag skin. Like the classic Magneto skin. Because I had like 600 credits. I need like 1,600. I was like, I have so much fun with him. I just want to look even better while I'm doing it. So like, I just went ahead and bought the skin today while I was at school playing that one match. Because I kicked ass as fucking Magneto, and it just It's the stuff that makes you feel good. Now there are times that are infuriating. It sometimes within the same match you can feel the whole gamut of the emotional spectrum. And that's it's fine. I appreciate the game. I love the game. I like watching the game. I like playing the game. It's all there for me. I've got it. It's still there, baby. I don't know if I'm going to be a grandmaster this season, but I've still got the love. It's not all about your rank.
Yeah. I'm modifying my relationship with the game. I still love the game. I still play the game a ton. Like I'm modifying my perspective when it comes to ranked. I think because I want to get to GM. I was kind of forced to take like a week long break because both my controllers broke at the same time, and I had this insanely terrible stick drift to where I was like, I can't do anything in this game. I was like playing quick play and I was like spinning in circles out of my control and a bunch of shit. So
It's so
Sunday,
wild. I mean, we were talking about that at the same time, and like I also had two
yeah,
controllers go out with stick drift. And like, how does that happen? Number one, we were wondering if it was maybe a glitch in the game.
it felt like a
But I
bug.
felt like a bug. But now I noticed on like, and it wasn't consistent between both. But I've got to step away for a second. I'm sorry.
No,
Hang
you're
on.
good. I'll talk.
Maybe so.
Yeah, you're good. I'll fill in. So yeah, Seth and I were both kind of experiencing the same stick drift issue in the game. So we were both like experiencing this weird kind of drift to the right on our with our aim, and then we would spin sharply to the left in a circle. And I was experiencing this on both of my PlayStation controllers. And I started reading online, and I was seeing like when the game first came out in December, there was like a Reddit thread of people experiencing this, and so I just chalked it up to like, okay, I guess this is a bug in the game or something. And so I just was like, I guess I'm just kind of at the mercy of when NetEase fixes this or whatever. But I played on Sunday and was finally like, you know what, I'm just gonna like, I didn't have another shooter downloaded on my PlayStation, but I was like, I'm just gonna download Overwatch because I've been playing Overwatch on my PC. We're going to talk about this later on in the episode, but I finally downloaded Overwatch and was like, I'm just going to go into the practice range and see if I have the same issue there. And lo and behold, I had the same issue in the practice range in Overwatch, and I was like, oh shit, it's a me issue. It's not a NetEase issue. I apologize, Mr. Rivals. And so went ordered a new controller. I wish Seth was here for me to tell him I did this, and I might mention it when he gets back. But I Instacarted a controller to myself because Sunday I don't leave my house. It's I try not to leave my house on Sundays. I want to sit back, chill, hang out, and so I got myself a brand new purple PlayStation controller and had that shit delivered to my abode, and lo and behold, fixed all my issues. No more stick drift. But yeah, I don't know. Two controllers die, like you haven't run into the same exact issue at the exact same time in the exact same way. Felt kind of crazy. But Seth, did you hear my admission?
No, no.
That I Instacarted the that controller on Sunday to myself.
That's badass. That's about as California as you can get, baby.
I mean, dude, the Best Buy is literally like 5 blocks down the road from me. It's like on the same street that I live on, 5 blocks down. But I was like, it's
Nobody
Sunday.
walks in LA. You can't walk in LA.
It's Sunday. I have like a hard rule that I don't leave my house on Sundays. Like it's just my day to chill. So I was like, I'm just gonna Instacart this shit. So, and as long as it's here before I'm due to hop on with Seth, I'm good to go. So
hell yeah. Yeah, I don't know where I left off exactly, but it was kind of the same thing. And again, we won't go. I mean, you've been talking the whole time, I'm sure. But it was just wild to make that was happening. And the final straw, I was able to deal with it in Rivals because it was kind of just a drift, and I would like clean the joystick with a little alcohol wipe, little glasses cleaner, and it would kind of help for 10, 15 minutes or so, enough to get a couple games in maybe. But it just wasn't working out, and I knew it wasn't when I got Assassin's Creed Shadows, and my character, every time I would just briefly let go of the joystick, they would just start walking left, and they would keep on going, and it made that game pretty much impossible to play because you have to be pretty precise with what you're doing, or else it's a lot more difficult. in every single situation. So I got my controller. I went with the Midnight Black. I'm happy. It feels like magic. You kind of forget after a while what a new controller feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels smooth. It just feels good in your hand. And whether it's an Xbox or a DualSense controller, like but something about that crispness really just brings the feelings in.
Yeah, I think I passed the 200-hour mark in Marvel Rivals on
Ooh.
console this week too. Um, so
I
uh,
think I went like 172 or 178, somewhere around there. So I'm a little ways behind you, but there aren't many games that have been like that for me for a while.
you honestly might have more hours in competitive than me though. I play a lot of quick play at this point, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I do want to get back into competitive this week. That's going to be something I'll talk about at the end of the show. But now that I've got my controller issues kind of ironed out and all that, but yeah, when I got into Overwatch and I was like, oh shit, my controller's doing the exact same thing. But I don't know, man. Like, is there something about Rivals that's just like harder on the joysticks? Like, is it that I'm
It
having
may
to
be.
like click in for my ultimate or something? Like, I don't know,
I
dude.
think it may be just the intensity. Like this is what hardcore Call of Duty will probably go through. When like you kind of take out your frustration and your grip, and you may not even be realizing it. There may be a little bit of that. I know I'm banging buttons sometimes, and I don't know. I get a little worked up as I'm playing, and that doesn't happen as much to me in other games. So I don't know. I mean, I think I got both of those controllers when I got my PlayStation like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was probably about time. They sure don't make them like they used to. I've got a PlayStation 1 over here. That controller works just fine. 30 years later, but
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I Instacarted that blue controller that I have too.
Maybe that's the problem.
I was in San Francisco for an NBA 2K event, and we didn't have a controller for the setup that we were using. I was like, I guess I gotta Instacart one because I can't leave. So maybe I just should stop Instacarting controllers to myself, but and just go pick one up. I don't know. Maybe that's the issue. All right, man. Well, let's jump into the news. Our first item on the list, we've got a new patch coming out on the 27th, and we'll skip the first part and come back to it in just a second. But let's talk about fixes real quick. This is really not like a balance patch or anything like that. It's really aimed at just fixing bugs. So fix several terrain issues that could cause characters to sometimes become stuck or clip into strange areas. Fixes a weird terrain issue on Hydra Charteris base map with Rocket Raccoon's BRB. I'm not going to read all of these directly, but it's all just bug fixes and stuff like that. Was there anything that jumped out to you here, Seth?
Nothing huge. I mean, all that stuff's pretty good. I did notice. What was it when? Um, I don't know if you've run into this bug, but down at the bottom with the console fix, I run into this all the time, I feel like, and I thought it was just something I was doing. But eventually I kind of started feeling like it's got to be some kind of bug. I'll open up the chat and it just goes straight to the
To the
top
top,
of
yeah.
the chat. And that's not a big deal if you've played one or two games, but after you've been, grinding like, 5, 6, 7, you just can't use the chat then. So I'm hoping that that's what this fix is, and that is gonna solve that for me, because I would love to lay into some fuckers, a little bit easier, kind of help me facilitate that by not throwing me up to the top of the chat
Yeah, there's
every time.
so I'll read it. It says eliminated a bug that sometimes caused the focus to unpredictably shift to earlier messages when opening the chat window for consoles. Yeah, there's nothing worse than being like mid rage chatting and you're just getting fucking nerfed by the bug in the video game taking you to the top, and you're like on attempt number 4 to get to the chat window, and you're like, is it even worth it anymore? Like, I'm just
Hmm.
standing still in spawn at this point, trying to type this
Right.
chat message in. And the answer is it's always worth it to flame your teammates. But but yeah, if I can feel a little less ridiculous now in my attempt to do it, then yeah, I'm gonna feel a lot better.
I like I don't know what this is talking about, but I like my imagination runs wild. So just if anything sticks out to you about this, let me know. Number 5 under heroes, Magneto's magnetic moments resolved an issue in the post match where Magneto's MVP could sometimes display some bizarre offbeat visuals. The master of magnetism now commands his moments with true polar precision. I'm just like imagining like instead of his MVP screen showing up, like you see like an old man in a diaper dancing or something like that, or like
I,
or like some hippies like tripping on acid and just like freaking out, but you can't see what they're seeing, man. I don't know. It's just like the phrasing of that was like, what could that mean? What are they talking about?
First of all, I have no clue what they're actually referencing here as far as the bug goes, because we'll talk about this in a second. But somebody in the Reddit thread we're going to talk about was mentioning the MVP screens and how you just kind of become blind to them after a while because it's just the same animation over and over and over again. And I feel like that reigns true, especially because I've literally never noticed anything wrong with a Magneto MVP screen. And especially if there's a old man in a diaper doing anything, I've never witnessed that.
Could be cool.
Could be cool. I would pay 2,200 credits for that or units for that. Let's see it. Um, yeah. I really hope that the stuff with the terrain fixes and things like that apply to things like Central Park with the shifting of the map. That's really frustrating when you're like standing on high ground and the map starts to change, or like in point B of Midtown when you're standing on that like middle high ground and it starts to shift. So
Yeah, and I feel like that's gotten better. They have, I feel like, worked on it. I think they addressed it in a patch before, but it definitely can still cause some problems.
yeah. So yeah, this patch will be out on the 27th, which is Thursday, at 9 o'clock UTC plus zero, whatever that means. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that. But to the top here, let's do some wild speculation um, about the limited time claim. So from April 1st to April 4th, it says we've added a special April Fool's Easter egg gift. Remember, only those who collect all rewards for Galacta's cosmic adventure will unlock this hidden twist surprise. Um, what do you think this could be, Seth?
I'm gonna go wild, and I know this isn't gonna be true. It'll be awesome if it were a character. But of course they can't gatekeep a character behind an Easter event. But maybe like if it were like early access to the character or something like that. Like what if they dropped Blade for Easter? You know, the birth of Christ, the Daywalker. Um, you know, like
there's at least 7 things wrong with what you just said, so we're not going to dig into any of them. But go ahead.
We don't have to dig. We don't have to dig. But you know. So you know that was something like that would be cool. I love a mystery. Other than that, I mean, I don't, it could be as simple as you know another story card.
Hold on,
books.
Seth. You can't see my screen, can you?
No.
Can you click into this real quick? Into the link. I mean, it's relatively close. I'm zooming in right
what
now.
What am I looking for?
Look at where it says claim on this image. This bro is cheeked up. Do you see that?
It does look kind of like a little diaper, like a little.
This guy is like turned around, posing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And he's like crazy cheeked up.
It's like the arm. Yeah, I can't believe you noticed. We might have figured it out.
Has it been like that in game?
I haven't looked closely enough to notice, but
I haven't seen that at all.
How did you notice that just now?
Well, I was just looking at it because I had no idea what I was going to wildly speculate it was about to see if there was anything I could hang my hat on. And I just was like, are those two ripe ass cheeks just staring at me?
You can hang your hat on those sweet clapping cheeks. You can whatever you want to do.
And so this has to be a limited time skin, right? And so what character is this for? Is this a Mr. Fantastic skin? Is this a Venom skin?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm sold on it being a skin. Maybe like that gesture kind of makes me wonder: is it an emote or something like that? Just like some kind of positiony thing. Um, I don't know. I mean, who's the Easteriest character that we've got out there? Like I kind of lean like Squirrel Girl just because she's kind of rabbit adjacent.
Well,
I don't know.
so it says it's just an April Fool's Easter egg gift. So Easter egg makes me think it's just that they just mean it's like hidden, not that it's like Easter related.
Okay.
And April Fool's makes me think April Fool's makes me think it's something that's going to be more memey. So maybe it is just an emote of a character doing some crazy ass like. Maybe it's just an emote where they're cheeked up like that. I don't know. You think NetEase is willing to cheek some? I mean, Venom is already naturally cheeked up in basically every single one of his skins. So.
It's whatever puts the asses in the seats. So I wouldn't be surprised they've got that invisible woman skin where her butt cheeks are hanging out already. So like maybe this is the male equivalent. Who's to say?
Man, we should do a tier list of characters we want to see cheeked up in the game to see if we can get to the bottom of this.
Rival asses.
Yeah.
Ass rival.
We know NetEase is willing to lean into those asses. So, yeah. I mean, I got to check in game after this to see if that's what it looks like in there because I feel like I would have noticed it. So, I don't know, man. That's wild. We'll see though. On April 1st, we'll see. I've already completed it. I've had this board completed for like a week because I have no life. I just play this game.
Yeah, same here.
So, do you think they're gonna have an April Fool's event? Overwatch does some April Fool's stuff. Do you think we're gonna see anything in Rivals like game mode wise, or do you think Clone Rumble is their April Fool's?
It's hard to say. It would of course be cool, and I'm always ready for more stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like they've done a lot so far this season, and it hasn't really been that long since their last. So Clone Rumble's still going on, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this may be it, but maybe as we get closer to Easter, maybe there's kind of a last event before the season ends or something like that. Mm-hmm. What have we got? 2.5 weeks left.
Yeah, something like that. It's not very long. So I would love to. I don't know. I would like to see. Didn't Overwatch? I mean, I know they had like mystery heroes, but I think they had a game mode at one point where like you would switch to a random hero after you got an elimination.
That sounds right.
And I'd love to see something like that in Rivals. I think something like that would be a lot.
Kind of like Gun Game and COD, but with character swaps. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of me mentioning the season change coming up soon. It almost makes me wonder: is this an Easter egg for Blade or somebody like that? Whoever the next character drop is going to be, or whoever the next drops are going to be. Is this going to be like some lore related thing setting that up, or a skin that kind of sets it up? Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. My money is just on it being supple ass related. So, all right. Well, let's move on then to our topics for the week. And before we jump into our main topic, which is going to be this Reddit discussion that I have linked for us, I just wanted to touch really briefly on a couple other hero shooters that I had a chance to kind of interact with, play around with this last week, and because I think I've kind of recaptured my love for competitive gaming because of Marvel Rivals, and it's really helped me to expand my desire to hop back into some other games. And so this past week, I had a chance to try Fragpunk, which is the sort of Apex Legends meets Valorant 5v5 hero shooter that I think it's published by NetEase and is I don't remember who the developer is, but Larry and I got a chance to play it for a couple hours over the weekend, and I gotta say, man, the gunplay in that game is a lot of fun. Character designs in the game are a lot of fun, and I'm not a real big fan of like CS:GO or Valorant, and part of the reason for that is like the time to kill in those games is so low, and I'm so bad at like being super accurate with guns that it's hard for me to be competitive in those games. Um but in Fragpunk, the TTK is a lot more akin to like an Apex, and because of that, it's a little more forgiving when it comes to aim. And because of that, I felt like I was able to compete a little better online. So that was fun. But also, Fragpunk has this cool mechanic called the shard card, and yes, we said shard card multiple times throughout
As you will, yeah.
yeah. But basically, you randomly draw three cards in between rounds, and your team can apply shard points to cards, and if you apply enough shard points to those cards, you can unlock those cards, and it will apply the rules of that card to the following round. So it can be anything from like the next round is melee weapons only, or the enemy team has bigger heads, or the map has a snowy atmosphere and you can slide around the map now, and stuff like that, or you can shoot your teammates to heal them and things like that. So it adds this other kind of like no two games are the same, because each round you can do different things. And I
I got
didn't.
three things.
What's that?
Sorry.
Yeah, go
Number
for it.
one, you just said doo doo. Number two, when you say heads, which heads are we talking?
Lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the lower half. Number three, how big are these heads getting, wherever they are?
So to seriously answer the question, it probably doubles the size of your head. And again, it's just for one round, but no, I was kind of like on the fence about how I would feel about it, because one of the reasons I like competitive games like Overwatch or Rivals is like the consistent experience game to game, like and so with Fragpunk, I was a little like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this kind of wrench in the system from round to round, but the cards just kind of make sense, and the fact that it only applies for one round of a game, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. Like the cards don't stack from round to round. Um, it kind of just adds its own level of consistency to it, like the shards themselves, and like the economy of the shards is its own consistent thing throughout. So like you're just kind of working as a team to figure out what works best for you guys. Like, okay, do we want to like go after things that are more defensive? Do we want to go after like making the enemy team's heads bigger and stuff like that? So there's stuff that feels a little more gimmicky, but then there's stuff that is a lot more strategic. Like, hey, we're going to eliminate one of the bomb sites or something like that for a round, so that there's only 1 point for the other team to attack, making our defense a lot easier, stuff like that. So I would highly recommend Fragpunk. I think it's doing cool things. I'm excited to try it out again when Larry gets back in town. But character designs are cool. There's only like one support character in the game though, so that's kind of strange. There's a real like imbalance of character types, but other than that, I think it's in a really cool. I think it's occupying a really cool space. And then the other thing is that 6v6, Overwatch's short 6v6 season returned.
I noticed you jumped back into Overwatch. Like I think I saw you got a trophy or something like that. Did is this what brought you back in just to kind of check that out after playing some rivals?
Well, so I jumped back in on PlayStation just to test out my broken controllers to see if it was a Rivals issue or if it was everything. But I did jump back into Overwatch on PC because of the 6v6 stuff. So when I played Overwatch for thousands of hours, it was I played off tank, right? So I played Diva, I played Zarya, I played Roadhog, like those are my characters. So when they went to the 5v5 system, they basically just said like fuck you to my role, right? And so I just fell out of playing the game. And so when I saw that 6v6 came back, I was like, hell yeah, like I'm gonna be able to play my characters again. And I'll tell you what, man, it feels like it should. And I love it, man. I love Overwatch. I'll always love Overwatch. I still watch OWCS, you know, like even though it's 5v5, like Overwatch will always hold a special place in my heart. It's the thing that got me into esports. So I love Overwatch, but 6v6 is how Overwatch should be played. And I think the reason that I like Rivals as much as I do is because it reminds me of those old school days of Overwatch playing 2-2-2 and coordinating around two tanks and kind of the power fantasy of I mean, and I play a lot of strategists in Rivals now, but yeah, there's just something about Overwatch 6v6 and feeling unkillable alongside another tank that you're just helping keep alive as a diva, defense matrix in a Winston when you're jumping on a back line, you know. It just feels good.
Feels good, like it should.
So yeah, I'm loving it, man. And I'm hoping that they keep it around. I think Overwatch has a little bit of an identity crisis right now because of it. I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out when this season's up, because I think you're going to have some of the new school Overwatch players who 5v5 is what that game is to them. You're going to have some of these people who are coming back to Overwatch like me for 6v6 who, if they do away with it, are probably just going to walk away from it again, you know? So what do you do if you're Blizzard, right? Do you keep the thing that the new school players want to play, or do you keep both in and have to consider balance around both, or what? It's a weird spot to be in, but
sure.
All right, man. Well, this isn't a Fragpunk or an Overwatch podcast. This is a Marvel Rivals podcast. So let's jump into our main topic for the day, and that is this Reddit thread that I saw from Russian Skittle over on the official Marvel Rivals subreddit. He just asked, "What is your main problem with Marvel Rivals?" And Seth, I think we will answer this question later if any of these comments don't answer. But what I want us to start with is just reacting to some of the comments that are here and what our thoughts are on some of the responses. So I sorted by best to start, but then we're going to sort by controversial, which is one of my favorite things to do on. And we're going to respond to some of those. So let's start with this first one. Blizaraz, who is a Rocket Raccoon main, according to his flair, says you shouldn't need to go to the website for full ability information. What do you think about that, Seth?
You know, I definitely agree, because like I know that like reading, when you pull up your character information mid game, you've got descriptions that are almost kind of like stylized, like that they're a little vague, and they definitely don't give you a ton of specifics. Like I don't know that I'm looking for like frame rate details or anything like that, but like I don't know. I'm having trouble thinking of examples off the top of my head, but I know that there are like little details that you kind of don't really get from those descriptions. What am I not thinking of here?
You don't get damage numbers on
Yeah.
anything. Like you don't get ability duration time for anything. Like it it basically just gives you an overview description of what the ability does with no details at all in game.
Mm-hmm.
And so
True. So I guess it's more so just like a general, it's a summary, but it's not, you don't get the specifics. And I feel like there's a simple workaround to that. Like you just come up with a key and like of some kind, like some abbreviations, and you just have the numbers listed beside it or something like that. I mean,
mhm.
I don't know, but that would definitely be helpful, especially as metas change from time to time. Instead of having to go through the grimoire of rivals.com or whatever the website's called, just having it accessible and transparent there on the screen for you in game.
Yeah, yeah. And we talked about this in our Lost episode a little bit, but I think games like this thrive when they put as much information as possible in as like accessible as place possible as possible, and especially when you get into a competitive game like this that goes through patches that change characters and change numbers and math, right? Where I should be able to go in and see like after a patch, like okay, the damage on Magneto's primary fire went up by 5 per projectile or something. Like I should be able to just see that in game, right, and not have to go hunt for that elsewhere. Or even just like, oh, this mantis sleep will sleep an enemy for 3 seconds, you know? But I think
Yeah.
the mantis description just says, hold on, let's just pull it up. Mantis character screen Marvel Rivals. Let's see if I can. There. We'll have her descriptions. Of course, that's not. What would I. Mantis character screen abilities. I'm not good at Google. I'm Googling like an old person here. Okay, here it is. So her sleeping thing, it says throw a spore to sedate the nearest enemy. It doesn't say that you have to hit them.
That's what it does.
It doesn't say that you
But it
have to
doesn't
hit
tell
them.
you. Yeah, it doesn't say you have to hit them. It doesn't say like for how long. It doesn't tell you that like when you use it, they wake up as soon as
They
someone
take
else hits
damage.
them, right? As soon as they take any damage, and it just leaves a lot of room for kind of figuring it out. And there's a beauty in that, but I don't like it. It would be also nice to know ahead of time. Maybe it comes down to people not liking to read. Who knows?
It also doesn't mention that it creates a spirit behind them that the enemy team can eliminate in order to wake their teammate up, which I think is a fact that a lot of people don't even know because
Mm.
like I don't see a lot of people shooting that thing that appears behind the player that Mantis just slept. But also, how is Mantis a 1-star difficulty player? Is it just because she doesn't have to aim her heals?
I mean, I guess. I mean, you've definitely got to be on it though, because I mean, you've got your like we've said before, you kind of are doing 3 different jobs. You're healing yourself, you're healing others, you're buffing others, and you're also buffing yourself. 4 different jobs, if that
Yeah.
that kind of makes it even tougher. But
I don't.
I don't know.
Maybe one day we should go through the difficulty ratings of these characters and see how accurate, because that doesn't seem right, and I feel like there's a lot of characters in this game that don't seem right. 1 star for Mantis seems incorrect, but all right. I agree with Blazeraz here. It sounds like you agree as well. Um, let's see. Lego Fucker 61, who's an Iron Man main, says
That sounds uncomfortable.
it really does. I mean, who knows?
Could be cool.
Could be cool.
Who's the judge?
Says there's 37 characters in the game right now. 8 of them are supports, 9 of them are tanks, and there's 20 DPS. Now they're all well designed and fun to play. Don't get me wrong, but they desperately need to add some more healers and tanks. I mean, that gets a here from me. Amen,
Yeah, I mean
brother.
it's a kind of a tired issue for us probably, and we mention something about it often. But I mean it's right, and seeing the numbers there, like you literally have double, like you've got more DPS than you have supports and healers combined, or sorry, supports and tanks combined. And that's saying something. And no wonder why you run into so many 2-4 comps, with no tank there, or so many 3, 4, 5 DPS matches. Like that statistically, why not? You've got that many characters to choose from, so it would definitely be nice to see that roster spread out in other areas a little bit more. Um, I don't know, like if people were writing Blade as one of the next characters, that kind of like what else could he be other than a DPS? I don't know if I see him being a Vanguard or a support. So like, is it only going to kind of get worse from there? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And Blade is just one of those like Blade's kind of like Spider-Man, where he's just like one of those aura characters that people are just going to naturally gravitate towards and want to play. You know,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
Mister Fantastic is one of those characters that you add him, and it's like I don't think people are going to run to try to play Mister Fantastic or like Human Torch or whatever. But Blade, first of all, his character design looks sick as fuck from what we've seen already. We don't
Yeah,
know anything about his abilities, but from an aura perspective, I think people are going to gravitate towards him. I was thinking about this the other day, Seth. This is only semi related, but in Overwatch, we know Doomfist got his rework to where he went from being a DPS character to being a tank.
hmm
I feel like Mr. Fantastic at some point, mark my words on this, is going to get this treatment in Rivals.
yeah. I'm sure you've seen the memes. Like I see Magneto standing at the Jedi Council, like superimposed on that shot from Phantom Menace. Episode whatever one, and I had to do the math there backwards. But and he's standing there in the middle of the council. He's like, we grant you admission to the Vanguard Council, but we do not grant you the rank of Vanguard. That's a Star Wars throwback when they're telling, Anakin. This is for the people out there that don't know, and they're telling Anakin that he can be on the council, but he's not a member of the council, or he's not a master. And then the next part of the meme is Mr. Fantastic there. He's like, he's pretty much a tank, but he's not a tank at the same time. Like, he's tank adjacent.
Yet, but he will
Beef him
be.
up just a little bit, maybe. And I could definitely see that happening. Um, it's just some they've got to make. I feel like some kind of small change to justify a move like that. What did they do to Doomfist to make that change work, or did they just switch him over when that happened?
I mean, they reduced his damage output, gave him a bigger health pool, changed up some of his
Okay,
abilities, stuff like that. So,
that's kind of what I was thinking, like the bigger health pool. I know, Fantastic gets a bigger health pool when he expands,
mm-hmm.
whatever the in-game term for it is, but
Engorges, I think, is what they
engorges. Fantastic, fantastic.
when he
Um,
boner fights.
Stupendous when the blood rushes to the pelvis. Yeah, so I could see something like that too. Maybe just give him, a 50 to, I don't know, 50 to 100 in his smaller form, his shrinkage form. And
Mm-hmm.
then when he engorges, let him maybe that's fine as it is. Who knows?
Yeah. Apollo Achille brings up another good one that I can speak to. We don't need to belabor this one, but lack of performance optimization on PC. I think this is less of a. I mean, I think it is a Rivals issue. I think it's also an Unreal 5 issue. I think Unreal 5 just struggles on a lot of non-cutting edge technology, my PC included. I'd love to play this game more on PC, but my computer just dies when it tries. So I think they could do a much better job of trying to optimize this game on PC. Here's an Iron Man that doesn't have a name like Lego fucker. Valuable Remote 88809 says that matchmaking doesn't exist. I'm tired of winning a match and then instantly getting queued with people who act like they've never played a game in their life versus a team that never misses a hit while playing uncountered. I understand that it is what it is, but it feels bad to win a game, have amazing stats for a tank, and then get stomped the next 4 games because the matchmaking thought I could carry 5 people in a team-based PvP hero brawler. Seth, what do you make of that one?
I mean, it's the mystery of the algorithm, or whatever the system is behind matchmaking. I mean, it's hard to say, and I don't know if it's even possible to prove. But I mean, you and I have both complained about that kind of feeling where it seems like there's a winners and a losers queue. Like when you're winning, the game's so streaky. You'll go for games or even days at a time and just win, 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 and then all of a sudden you hit a wall like a plateau, and you lose, 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 lose. And it's not like it's almost like there's no in between. Almost like I'm either winning more than I'm losing, or I'm losing more than I'm winning. Um, and
It's
maybe that's just how it always is. I don't know, but it just seems. How do you quantify that? I guess like how do you prove that there's something going on there?
it's also the quality of those wins and losses, right? Like very rarely do I feel like I'm in a rank game where it's like, damn, dude, that came down to the wire. Like that was a really good rank game. Like, um, playing Overwatch now, I and look, it's been a while since I've played Overwatch, so it's not like my MMR is like locked in, right? Um, but playing Overwatch, I feel like I'm playing more games that feel close, where it's coming down to the wire. But in Rivals, it feels like you're either rolling or you're getting rolled, and there's maybe one out of every 5 6 games is close, but other than that, it's like damn, it's 3-1 on Midtown, it's 2-0 on Hell 7.
Yeah, and some part of that too has to be what we've talked about before, where like we looked at the kind of skew the bell curve on how many players are in each rank, compared between Overwatch and Rivals. And I don't know. I mean, like we've said it before. Like I know that like in low plat and like in gold lobbies, I felt more down to the wire matches than I do in diamond lobbies. Like I almost have more fun sometimes in those lobbies when you're not having bans, and like when people just seem like they have more sense. And we were even playing quick play last night. Was it last night?
Yeah.
The times are all blurring together, but well, we're playing quick play last night, and we're finding better comps. We're seeing more 2-2-2. We're seeing less DPS, just like swarming the feed, to say insta locking. Um, how does that happen? Like, how do you get a better experience in quick play than you do in diamond lobbies? 4 tiers up from the bottom. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, and there was a comment on underneath Valuable Remote talking about how the quick play matchmaking is even wilder. And I don't know if this was on Reddit or if it was on like the Blue Sky Marvel Rivals feed or whatever, but it was a screenshot of back to back quick play games of a guy who went and checked the profiles of all the players. And in the first game, this guy was like a plat player, and in the first game, his whole lobby was like bronze and silver. In the next game, it was all celestial players and then him and like plat, and it was just like what the fuck is quick play smoking, and I guess that's the price you pay for 1 second queues or whatever. Like you're just gonna get dumped in with whoever. But yeah, and look, maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're just getting dumped in with a bunch of higher ranked players who are more willing to play like legitimate oppositions or something like that. And maybe those quick play games that are like Instalock 5 DPS, it's just a bunch of bronze. But I don't know, man. Yeah, matchmaking is wild, and I do think that they're gonna have to figure some stuff out in the ranked uh, when it comes to their uh, rank up system to figure out how to get people sorted a little bit better. All right, one more from the best, and then we'll move on to the controversial. But our Argon Tavis Gaming says map selection. I'd like more maps to play on, and maybe even the option to queue for specific maps or game modes. I'd love to see, I think, a map voting system before the game or something like that, where hey, like give me 3 options, and all 10 people or all 12 people in the lobby can like vote on what map they want to play on or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily want to break out different queues for different modes or anything like that, but yeah, I especially in quick play, I feel like you play a lot of back to back same maps.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get that. I don't know that I want to spend more time, especially like in a comp game where, you're going to be locked in for even longer anyway. Especially if you run into OT rounds and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, of course, like the old Call of Duty, Halo matchmaking system where you vote in the lobby when you're going just like game to game. But when you add in like the queue time, when you add in, which is pretty short most of the time, it's a little bit longer and competitive. But I don't know. I don't know that that's going to be the smoothest experience. But again, could be cool.
I don't. I think a voting system is also really good feedback for the devs of like, hey, what maps do people like and what do they not like, rather than having to just like it's like a data driven way to know rather than just kind of feeling it off of everybody saying like, oh, Odin's Archive really sucks or like the Clintar map really sucks or whatever. It's quantitative feedback rather than just qualitative. But I see what you're saying too. Like competitive games can already take forever. Adding a 30-45 second voting round for just and then if you're in diamond or whatever on top of all the pick ban phases
The
and
band
stuff.
phases too. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some controversial ones here. I haven't sorted yet. And look, there's obviously some stupid ones and controversial we're not going to talk about, but obviously a lot of mentions of Spider-Man here. Sermilio Das Dragonson says ult shouldn't charge so quickly. Dude, after
I
playing
mean,
after playing Overwatch, I didn't realize like it is true. Ults charge a lot quicker in Rivals than they do in Overwatch, but I don't know if it's a bad thing. What do you think about this one?
I think it goes along with like the kind of high dopamine experience of this game of Rivals. I also think it just depends on skill level too. Like if somebody who's popping off is gonna get more ult charge, more quickly, and teams that work better are gonna kind of build that together. So I don't know. I mean, I think it keeps the gameplay frenetic and fun. I don't know that like reducing it drastically is gonna like do anything to make the game more competitive. Um, I don't know. It's high octane. I think I like it. It keeps everything fresh and you kind of help. I don't know. Like it's hard to keep track of. Sure, if you're trying to ult track, but that also kind of adds some freshness to the game, right? Like you're not necessarily min maxing it in your head as much, or you're maybe not able to as much as you are in Overwatch. But I don't know. Like
See, I honestly think it's the opposite. I don't think it's hard to ult track in this game at all because you can just always kind of assume people have it. Like
I guess that's true.
ult tracking in Overwatch was always kind of challenging, and I was always like pretty impressed watching pro streamers or like pro players stream and be able to do it pretty accurately. But I feel like I'm pretty good at it in Rivals, and I don't think it's because I'm particularly like good at ult tracking in general. It's just, hey, that fight Bucky didn't ult, so he's probably gonna ult this fight. Like that's really what it comes down to. Um, and and I think I don't know, man. I when I'm watching competitive play, especially the first fight of a round is always the most interesting to me because I think in the neutral is when the mechanical skills really have the opportunity to shine the most. But then when like the fireworks of a big ult fight start, that's where you start kind of having a harder time keeping track of what's going on and it really just becomes more about like who gets more value out of their ult and less about like who's more mechanically gifted. And so I think I could personally stand to maybe see ult charge a little nerfed, but I also understand from a design perspective why you wouldn't necessarily want that, especially from the Rivals devs who've said like, hey, we care much more about fun than we do about like esports competitive balance or whatever like that. Like we want the game to be balanced and fun, but we want people to like have their like power fantasy playing this game, you know, and the ultimates are a big part of it. So, uh, fuck my feelings about it. That's their vision for the game, and I don't think they're going to change it. So,
Yeah, that's something I don't see going away either. You know, like I said, it's high dopamine, it's high octane, it's frenetic and fun, and you know, it makes the kids happy. So that's what they're going for. You want them to keep buying skins.
the Grease says healing is too good. He says some other stuff, but it's unrelated to that, so I'll just leave it there. What do you think? Do you think healing is too good?
Uh, could be better.
Not
uh,
healing, not healers.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get that, I guess, from perspective because you've got those, you know, those lock-on characters like, I almost said Moira God, like the Cloak and Dagger, or, you know, like Mantis. Um, but not everybody's like that. And I don't know. I mean, if it were too good, then you wouldn't have to be good. You wouldn't have to play your position, right? So to make it work, it would just kind of work on its own, and everybody would get that juice all the time. So I think that's a load. I don't really buy into that at all.
Yeah, I think the only thing that makes healing too good is the fact that there's so many like invincibility ults in the game.
Hmm.
That's really all it is. Like, and maybe that mixed with the ult charge stuff makes for this feeling of like, shit. Now I'm having to try to kill through like a Luna ult and then follow that with like an Invisible Woman ult, and you know, like I have one fight where I can kill people, and then we're back to the Luna ult and the Invisible Woman ult or whatever. Like, but I don't think healing's an issue in the game. In all honesty, I think the game is pretty well balanced to all things considered. So, all right, Seth, what is your main problem with the game?
Um, you know, just that I'm not as good as I want to be at. No, I don't know if that's what it is. Overall, I would. I think we've talked about it before, but I mean, we're here right now. My biggest problem is that I want that button. That you know, when you were playing Overwatch, did you still have the button where you
Yeah,
can team up
yeah,
with a team after you play a match? Like that would, I feel like, solve so many problems for me as far as just like my fun ratio in the game. Just being like having the choice or the option to team up with randoms and not have to say in the chat, let's team up, and or do you want to team up, and then you have to friend request them, and then you have to join up or whatever, and you know that's a hassle. So I mean, like, there's got to be a way to implement that to where you could just have that option, and then being able to, because I have met up with people like that once or twice and played games, and then it's in this game you got to kind of be quick to get away from people too. Like if like I ended up getting locked into some games that I didn't even want to play with somebody one time, because like he would just insta queue every single, like after every single match, and I'm like, I'm trying to leave, but I can't get out, and I didn't want to leave because we're playing competitive, like, or you know, you can leave in game because we're playing comp.
mm-hmm.
So I think that I kind of stole two there, I guess, but
Yeah. That's fine.
definitely want that button. That's my biggest one. And then, you know, maybe just kind of some UI improvements, that user interface would help me a little bit too. Just kind of smoothing things over a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we covered some of my biggest issues in, in the game with some of the stuff we talked about. I'll expand on a couple things. I think info all around in the game could use some better access. I mean, we talked about like some of the ability information. I think one of the things like hero proficiency, I like that they added like the little emblems in the hero screen and stuff like that. I wish they would add the progress bars as well. So like, because like having to click into each character to see how close you are to the next stage of like your hero progress and stuff like that. You know, just
Yeah.
little things like that. I wish they'd tweak. The default in-game ping system is absolute fucking buns too. Like the fact that the group up button is something you have to go in and like manually map and isn't just like default in the game makes no sense to me. Like grouping up is such a fundamental aspect to hero shooters. It um, makes no sense why you would like hide that behind a menu. So those are probably the
Mhm.
two things we didn't talk about that I would add. So all right, Seth, you ready to move on? Talk a little bit about this second weekend of the North American MRI.
Yeah, let's do it, baby.
All right, how much of it did you get to watch? I know
You
you were
know,
busy this
they still
weekend.
kind of had it just in the background as as the weekend went through. I wouldn't say I watched as much of it as I did like the last weekend, but enough to just kind of see some of the teams play. It's always interesting. It's just hard for me to kind of sit down, especially like during the mid afternoon when some of these matches are going on, consistently watch. But I've got enough, I think, to where I can speak to just the experience in general.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for me to talk about players and talk about, some of the different compositions because I wasn't necessarily um, tuning in long enough to really be able to speak well on those. What
Yeah.
about you? I know you watched more than I did, and that's going to be a running theme throughout this show, probably.
Nah, it's all good. Like, and you know, I think it would be cool sometimes when these events are going on for me and you to like chill in Discord and watch together and stuff. Because I know you and I watch these things very differently too. So, and I know we both like watching these things. So it would be fun to just have like a watch party together and stuff like that. So I honestly didn't watch as much as I wish I could have, but I did, you know, watch lower bracket finals. I watched the grand finals, and I watched a little bit of some of the start of the lower bracket. So I can speak a little bit to some of the stuff I saw in the early part of the weekend, and then obviously coming down the stretch with the third place matches in the grand finals. So, um, but what I really want to focus on here in kind of the early stages of this as an esport is so we had two events going on this weekend, right? We had the MRI going on, but we also have the in-game tournament going on. So like the in-game seasonal tournament that they have. So the kind of Marvel Rivals esports scene is starting to take its early shape. And because of that, I think we can start to sort of speak on the experience as a like as viewers and as esports fans in general. So yeah, you mentioned that you can kind of speak to just what it's like to sit down and watch it. So what are your kind of like initial thoughts so far on the format, on spectating, that sort of stuff?
I think it's enjoyable knowing the game. I think it's this game suffers some of the same problems that Overwatch League used to suffer, and like just kind of esports in general suffers is that like you kind of have to be a player to really be able to follow what's going on sometimes, like you have to kind of be aware of how team comps work. You have to be aware, um, especially in games like where you're following like one player's perspective. Like, yeah, it's helpful that you can see like the silhouettes or the shadows of your other teams, the players' teammates through walls and stuff like that, so you can see them. But sometimes you can't see everybody, and um, Overwatch and COD, I think they do something that I haven't really noticed them doing in Rivals. Maybe I've missed it, but I always found it helpful when the camera would kind of zoom out in that spectator mode, and you could kind of see a third person, like kind of bird's eye view perspective of where the players are.
Mm-hmm.
And I always kind of wish that there would be more of that in Overwatch League and in COD as well. I feel like I see even less of it in COD now than I used to in its early days. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that just kind of helps the spectator, the person watching on TV that isn't there in game, just kind of get a grander sense of what's going on. Just being able to zoom out and see that a little bit more. Because like imagine watching a football game and you have to switch perspectives from like the quarterback's helmet to
Mm-hmm.
like a tight end's helmet, or to whoever, a running back's helmet, whatever. And you're gonna see some good stuff there, but if you don't get, and that could be a really cool idea actually, now that we're talking about it, I'm sure the NFL's thought about it, but if you don't zoom out and get the field itself, like you're missing some crucial aspects of the game. So that's kind of my 2 cents about like what I think is missing from this so far. And it worries me that we're not seeing it early on because like these are lessons that I feel like should already have been learned. And people know that esports is notorious, especially team-based shooters like this. It's notorious for like being hard to get into, if that makes sense. It's a well-known issue.
Yeah, I'm curious who they have doing the production for the MRI because I've been watching the Thursday Rivals Fight Night, and that's like Puckett, ZP, a lot of these guys who have like been around esports for a decade, right? Like Overwatch League, COD, like, and I feel like the viewership, the like viewer experience for Fight Night is light years ahead of where MRI was over these last couple weekends. In a lot of senses, and number one is what you're saying, like a lot more of those just like contextual shots where it's like, hey, we're gonna zoom out, let you see the point so that you can kind of take in the whole fight so you can understand like so much of Rivals is front to back team fighting, right? Where like you're gonna have your healers in the back, you're gonna have your DPS kind of in the middle, and then your tanks in the front line, and it's really important to kind of see how that's playing out in full screen, right? And Fight Night does a really great job of letting you see all of that. I do think Rivals is a little more readable being a third person game than Overwatch is being like first person, but
Yeah, I agree with that.
it doesn't help a ton when all you're seeing is like the player's perspective. I also think there's just a lot of weird stuff with like the spectating way that like the colors play out. So I'm going to try to explain this, and I hope this makes sense. One of the things that confuses the fuck out of me is like the color of shields and like, let's say like the Invisible Woman ult changes based off of the perspective that you're spectating from. So if I'm spectating from the blue team side, so that's the team that's on attack first, and the enemy team invis ults, that's going to appear as red. But if I then switch to a red team side, that invis ult is going to turn to blue. It's the same ult, but it's a different color. And I'm like, why would you not in the spectator make the ult the same color as the team, regardless of the perspective that you're seeing it from, so that it reads instantly whose ult it is for the people that are watching? And like, it's those sorts of little things that just like make it really hard to keep up with. Like, I'm finding myself constantly having to look in the top right corners to like see whose ults are active, to like understand who's actually doing what. And because of that, like the readability of the game is challenging. And I know what's going on, like,
yeah, there's a lot of that. There's work that has to kind of be put into watching it, and like while that can be cool and constructive, it's not easy, and people, I don't think most people want, like, if you're gonna be chilling watching something on a Sunday night, Saturday night, whatever it is, Thursday night, fight night, you don't want to like have your pen and paper out taking notes, as you're watching a sporting event, like some people think that's cool. Scorecards are a thing in baseball, but I don't know. Like, there's a point where I think like you're kind of focusing too much on reading the numbers and tracking the ults, as opposed to watching the gameplay play out. Because I mean, it's a fast-paced game, right? There's not enough time to do all that. So,
yeah, I totally agree. And for the frenetic pacing of the game itself, I think the MRI pacing of the event is fucking miserable. Like, and this is something again that Fight Night does amazingly. Like, dude,
I need to watch. Remind me to watch that this week.
Yeah, I'll text you on Thursday because, dude, I've gotten to where I'm watching like Deadlock Fight Night, which is it's another game I've never even played. I'm like, but the production's just so good because one of the things they're doing with Rivals is like, they're like, hey, we got everybody in this lobby. We're not gonna put 10 minutes between maps. You're in here. We're gonna go map to map to map. We're not putting breaks in between. Like, League does this, and basically every esport does this, and it's like, why? You're in there. You can strategize while you're in the lobby. Like, just queue up for the next one. Let's go. Like, you got to
Yeah,
adapt.
I think COD does it a little bit better. Like I think it's every like 2 games they take a 5-10 minute break or something like that. But it gets old, and again, it's like what we've talked about in weeks before, where you see the same ad over and over again, or you hear the
Mm-hmm.
same song over and over again. It gets old, and that's part of the viewing experience too. So like it would be nice to have a little bit more production value there. I think past like the pretty yellow background, like some of the graphic design stuff, there's not a lot more to it than that.
And then they had a 30-minute break between the lower bracket finals and the grand finals. And that 30-minute break was actually an hour-long break because they then had like 30 minutes of pregame talking before the game actually started. And that was so that the two teams in the grand finals could play in their in-game tournament games. And it was just
Honestly,
like,
now that you say that, that's actually part of the reason that I wasn't really thinking about it until now. That's part of the reason that I haven't been watching that much, because every time I tune in, they're
it's
just
in a
talking,
break and they're
and
talking.
yes, they
Yeah.
are, or they're in a break, yeah, and like the talking is valuable, and I'm sure the breaks are there for a reason, but like at some point, like I feel like there's more game or more talk than there is game,
Mm-hmm.
and true, that's like in other sports too. Like you've got whole shows dedicated to just talking about football, but those are also outside of the event too, right? Like you're
Yeah.
going to have a little talking, you're going to have some pregame talk, you're going to have a little bit of postgame talk, and kind of like maybe a breakdown at halftime. But you're locked in for a lot longer than you are in this. Like it's just like there's only so much I want to hear before I actually see the game being played. You know what I mean?
Well, and it makes I don't know, dude. Like, it makes sense if you're an esport that's being played live in person on LAN and you're having to like switch out equipment, get new players on stage or whatever. But when this is like being played remotely and you're literally just setting up lobbies, like just have players ready to go, man. Like how hard is and I say how hard is this after working in esports, and I know it's fucking hard to get people to be anywhere on time in esports, but yeah, it's I don't know, man. The viewership experience is hard. I prefer to watch these things on like YouTube VOD where I can just like fast forward through a lot of it, just get to the pick and ban, and I don't want to listen to all the breakdown and all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of room to grow. I hope they start consulting more people with a lot more esports experience because it seems like I don't know. It seems like this is uh very beginner stuff. They're not they're not folding in a lot of lessons that other esports have learned early on.
Yeah.
All right, before we move on, I do want to talk about some of the games, and we don't need to talk very long, but um, some of the some of my observations from the weekend came into these last 2 weeks thinking that the number one, number two teams were Sentinels and 100 Thieves in some rank. Most people probably would have put Sentinels at 1, 100 Thieves at 2. Fight night rolls around last Thursday. 100 Thieves wins. Um, Kind of flipped everything on its head. And then we get to this weekend, and FlyQuest upset Sentinels in a probably the match of the weekend in a 5 map banger in the lower bracket finals. And they go in and they take 2 maps off 100 Thieves, but 100 Thieves ultimately comes out, wins the whole thing, and cements themselves as the best team in North America right now. And honestly, dude, it didn't really even look close all weekend or these last 2 weeks. Like, no team really looked close to 100 Thieves at all. And we're kind of at this spot in professional Marvel Rivals right now where I really want to see some international play because we have Virtus Pro, who looks totally untouchable in Europe, and 100 Thieves, who looks head and shoulders above everybody in North America. And I really want to see them play each other because We have insane DPS on the 100 Thieves side with Terra and Delena, and we have Sparker, who's like a Bucky god for Virtus Pro right now, and I really want to see them matched up against one another. So I'm interested to see how they're going to kind of build these invitationals into like hopefully an international like LAN tournament that will let us see these guys on like a big stage. Um, but yeah, we've got two kind of clear front runners in both of these regions. But it was cool to see my team, FlyQuest, kind of overperform over the weekend. They pulled out the attack Jeff, the DP Jeff, for a map, and actually 100 to 0'd 100 Thieves on one of the points of Hell's Heaven for a map. Did you watch any of the grand finals?
No, no, I didn't make it to that. I watched a little bit earlier in the weekend.
Yeah, that they pulled out the Jeff, and you know you see a lot of Jeff on domination to start because he'll like bubble out of spawn to give people speed, and then they just switch right off. And so you know you see him in spawn, and you think that's what they're going to do, but then they just stuck with it. And everybody was like, "Holy shit!" And then he was just in the back line. He did like 13,000 damage in the on the map, and yeah, it was crazy. Was there anything like from the games that you were able that you watched that stuck out to you, like characters you saw or?
Not this week in particular. No, I know like in week like the previous week, I liked seeing some of the kind of the how it maybe not as dominant as like 222, and I think the one thing I caught was a player this weekend talking about how like he felt the safest bet as a pro is kind of to maintain that 222 meta, because people are just so good, you know. But when you have kind of a variety of players out there in the wild, it can be cool to see like a three tank comp come into play. Three of course supports is cool too. But I like kind of seeing some of that stuff and not just as much of like the mirror comps.
Mm-hmm.
I think North America maybe does that a little bit better than some like the what's the European? Is it
EMEA? Yeah.
yeah. Or like Asia. Like I feel like every time I tune into those, it's the same two comps going against each other. And Overwatch League would do the same thing a lot of the time, back in the day, right? So I like to see people mix it up and play different metas, different comps against each other. And I think that's one thing that Rivals maybe has the potential to do better than Overwatch just in general is to kind of like allow people to make stuff work instead of just letting like this is what we're gonna do. We're doing goats. We're doing it all the time, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think North America is starting off right now is kind of the place where there's a lot more experimentation within the meta. We did see like Shroud in the first weekend pulling out that like 3 Vanguard stuff. We saw a lot of 3 strategist stuff floating around with like Star Lord as the one DPS over this weekend, so and I hope we continue to see that innovation without the 222 roll queue and or roll lock and things like that. I want to continue to see teams limit test and do interesting things, especially when we get to international play. Like you're not seeing a lot of thing play in Europe. You tune into Fight Night and you're seeing a lot of Groot, you're seeing a lot of Strange, you're seeing a lot of Magneto. You're not seeing a lot of thing, but you are in North America. You're seeing a lot of Venom in North America. And so I want to see this our region continue to be kind of that like breeding ground for experimentation and because in all other esports that I watch, North America always falls behind in that aspect, and we're always playing catch up, meta catch up, and it's the reason that we fall behind competitively to other regions as well, because we start just trying to emulate everybody else. And so if we can be the people defining what's going on competitively, I think we can find more success internationally too. Um, so yeah. Plus, we've just got some insane. I mean, Delena on the Hella all weekend was great. Terra on the Wolverine was was nasty. Light talking his shit, dude. You need to go back and watch. I mean, the grand finals were good, but you need to go back and watch that lower bracket final if you didn't get a chance to watch it, because he popped off on the Star Lord, and then in his post match interview went and talked his shit about being the best Star Lord in the world, and I for one believe him after watching that match. He was insane.
That's the kind of stuff I mentioned last week I would like to see. And, I think COD League started doing this. I haven't really noticed them do it as much in the past. They were just posting like shorts on Instagram or, on wherever, with just, like there's a time honored Call of Duty tradition where, and I didn't like, this is kind of intimidating when you see it in person. But like when you win a match, you just slam your controller down, stand up, and start berating the other team in person. Like you're just screaming at them like you're dog shit, you're dog water, you suck, like get at it. Like, and they say terrible things. And they were showing those. And then, I kind of like when I zoomed out a little bit, I was like, this is kind of horrible. But in the moment, it was also like kind of cool to see that dynamic play out between these people who know each other and compete against each other all the time, and how much of that's theater, who knows. Some of the comments aren't the most original, but sometimes it's kind of cool to like hear somebody, when they're on that adrenaline high, just kind of the things that come out of their mouths. It's nice to see that. And it kind of sucks to me that you only get that in post-game interviews in Rivals right now. You're not kind of seeing it in the moment live on LAN or something like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to the moment where we're playing LAN. There was a moment in season 1 of the 2K League. They 2K the first season of 2K had one of the coolest stage designs ever, where they sat really close in this like circle, and they would do the same thing like mid match. They would like dunk and stand up, and they'd like talk shit across the setups and all this stuff. But it was the Celtics versus I think the Cavs, and after the match they were standing up shaking hands, and there was like a shoving match afterwards, and it was like a big deal. Like a couple guys got like fined and suspended for a little bit of time and whatever, and it was like, you obviously don't want to see like shit boil over to that degree, but it was also like these guys care and they're like into it, and it kind of like, it was my first exposure to the 2K League, and so I was like, damn, that's kind of cool, because
That's badass, man.
because like, I don't know, man, like I get that esports is a small circle of people and you kind of like get a little chummy with people, but I like to see the rivalry. I like to see the competition, I like to see people caring about their craft, and you've made it to the highest like level of competition in this thing. Like, you should care about being better than the guy you're going up against.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like nobody likes, like, of course, like it's terrible when people like storm the field in baseball, right? But like when a pitcher hits a batter, and that team, like you get to see the passion and the batter's teammates when they like are, you can see them cursing, you can hear them from 100 yards away on mics, like where they're, you can tell somebody's trying really hard to cover up that sound, but you kind of see the heat, and that is probably not the best way for humans to behave, but we're violent creatures, and it's kind of fun to watch that shit sometimes, like it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Hey, 2,000 years ago, we were buying tickets to go watch people get eaten by lions inside of a giant coliseum. So we've evolved a little bit, at least. Beyond that,
Yeah.
now we just watch it on YouTube. So
there we go, man. We could talk later. I started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is apparently going to be a show or a movie or something like that. And it kind of does that Hunger Games thing where it's playing around with that idea of like media viewership and stuff like that. But it's cool.
Like the finals.
Yeah.
We're gonna
forget about that. Forget about that game a couple times a year at least. But.
I just watched a video on that game, so that's why I was thinking about it. So,
it's fresh in the mind.
All right, man. Well, this has been a really good episode, but let's finish it up as we do every week and talk about the goals we want to achieve in Marvel Rivals this week. What are you hoping to do this week?
I'm gonna set the bar lower this time. I thought I was setting it lower last week. So I have, the highest I have been rank wise is Diamond 2, and to my chagrin, I would like to get back to Diamond 2 at least. I would like to go. Well, I don't know exactly what RP or SP, whatever it is that I was, but I would like to just kind of know or have a general sense that I got at least a little bit higher. I moved the bar up just a little peg, a mini peg above kind of where I was before. So like kind of mid 3 to 3/4 through Diamond 2. I would like to kind of be in view of Diamond 1. How about that?
All
We'll
right.
go with that.
I'm gonna set my bar even lower. I just want to play ranked like 2 nights before the next podcast or something like that. I haven't played any ranked in like a week and a half. So now that I've got my controller, I wanna just hop in, play a little bit of ranked, and try to earn some back. If I can make it back to diamond, that'd be cool. But yeah, also almost a centurion on Mantis. So if I can get there
Hell
as
yeah.
well. But all right, man. Well, great episode as always. Grand time talking to you about my new favorite game, Marvel Rivals, and we'll be back to do this all again next Tuesday. If you guys want to leave a comment or a like or a follow wherever you're watching or listening to us, we would definitely love and appreciate that. But until next week, Seth, have fun in your games, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Bye
Hell
bye.
yeah, brother.